Welcome to the Health Conscious Living Podcast. I'm Dr. Gayle Myers, integrative medicine physician. The purpose of this show is to teach you the same framework I've used to help heal myself and hundreds of others. We'll cover lifestyle health habits, meditation, and mindset topics to unlock your potential for optimal living and thriving. Welcome to the Health Conscious Living Podcast. I'm Dr. Gayle Myers, and today my special guest is Patricia Roberts. Patricia has spent over 2 decades educating families about preparing for the cost of higher education and has helped thousands of families avoid millions of dollars in student loan debt. She is the author of Route 529, A Parent's Guide to Saving for College and Career Training with 529 Plans. She has helped launch a nonprofit program called New York City Kids Rise, where more than 200,000 New York City public school elementary students have received seed money for college. She is the Chief Operating Officer at Gift of College, Inc. She has been featured on CNBC, Good Morning America, in Forbes, Fortune, Newsweek, USA Today, and U.S. News and World Report, and more. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you so much, Gayle, for having me here today. I'm really happy to be with you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. And today you're going to tell us all about the 529 plan. You are changing the futures and the lives of millions of students and parents through your work with the 529 plan. So tell us about it.
Absolutely. And this topic is one that's really important for individuals to know about because 2/3 of Americans indicate they do not know what a 529 plan account is. So I'm happy to help educate your audience. So Section 529 plans are offered by just about every state in the United States except for Wyoming, and the District of Columbia has a plan as well. And these plans are named after the section of the Internal Revenue Code that governs how they work, and that's Section 529. And what these accounts are special accounts that enable families in the United States to save on a tax advantage basis for a particular purpose, and that purpose is higher education. So when after-tax earnings are contributed to 529 plan accounts, and when they grow in value, the earnings are not taxed. Unlike other forms of savings and investing, you may recall at year-end, you get a tax statement on your bank savings account, maybe on a mutual fund account, some other form of savings or investing. With 529 plan accounts, you're not paying tax along the way. So less tax can mean more money for higher education. And in fact, when those funds are eventually withdrawn and used for a wide range of educational experiences, not just college, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, those earnings are never taxed. And then beyond that, 37 states and the District of Columbia offer an annual state tax deduction or credit to incent their residents to prepare for the cost of higher education. And I think you reside in one of those states that has an annual state tax credit. So there's wonderful advantages to these accounts. They involve putting money away for a particular purpose rather than having a general use savings account that you may divert for other means. This is an intended purpose. What's also great about 529 plan accounts is that you can get started with very little money. Many of the states enable residents and others to open an account with $25 or even less. Another attribute of 529 that you should know about is that the account owner whoever that may be. It does not have to be a parent of a future student. It could be a grandparent, could be an aunt or uncle, a godparent, a friend or neighbor. You don't even need to be related to the individual for whom you're saving. But whoever you are, as the account owner, you are in control at all times of that 529 plan account. And that's important because there are other forms of savings and investing for young people that when they've reached the age of majority, 18 or 21, depending on the state that they're in, they get their hands on the funds and they can use them for any purpose. That's not the case with the 529 plan account. And I like to point that out because the account owner stays in control. So if the child's going off in a direction that you're not satisfied with, or they need a gap year or two to figure themselves out, it's okay. You can keep those funds in the account and you can always change the beneficiary to a member of the family of the original beneficiary. So there's plenty of interesting and valuable attributes to these accounts. I hope I've given you a flavor of some of them.
Absolutely. So when should a parent start?
Well, as parents, we have a lot on our plates. So I want all of your listeners to give themselves grace wherever they are in their parenting journey. Certainly, the sooner you get started, the better. And why is that? It gives you more time to save and more time for those investments to grow in value. You can get started as soon as the child arrives. Once you have a Social Security number and date of birth for that future student. You could even get started before the child arrived by naming yourself as the account beneficiary. So you'd be the account owner and the beneficiary. And if you're related to the child or the child to be, as I said before, you can always switch the beneficiary. So you could change it to that newborn child once you have their date of birth. So never too early to begin. And Gayle, I want to say for those who may be a little later in the journey of thinking about this, it's also never too late. And why is that? Any amount you can save is that much less that the child or student will need to borrow and repay with interest. So whatever you can put away, even if you're just getting started in high school, maybe even if they're just on the brink of going to college, whatever you can do is going to help them, and you should feel good about it, because individuals who know someone is saving for them for the future, there's been research on this topic, are 3 times more likely to attend college and 4 times more likely to finish, just knowing that someone believes in them and has set some money aside. And that study that I'm referring to is talking about dollar amounts under $500. So in that case, what they've learned, it's not necessarily the amount you save that matters, although that truly does matter, but the child or future student knowing that you believe in them, that someone is saving, can really have an impact on their future. So start as soon as you can, save what you can, but know that you're making an impact by doing so.
That's terrific, because what is the cost now of a college education, and what kind of debt is the student going to come out with? Or on the other side of that, what are they going to save on the other end when they come out without that debt?
Yeah, so in terms of what is the cost, I think we can generalize it as high, and it is higher for some forms of school, out of state versus in-state, private versus public, but we're talking tens of thousands of dollars a year in many cases. And I've seen some schools recently start listing the cost, the published price, and then there's also the net cost, which needs to be considered after forms of aid are deducted, but close to $80,000 a year. Now, that's not every school, and I want parents to know that a student can attend any range of schools that are quality institutions. It doesn't have to be the dream school that you can't afford, right? It's certainly worth aspiring to many different forms of education, but in the end, taking a careful look at that net cost is going to make a real difference to your family in the long run. Why is that? The average student's coming out with $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in student loan debt. Some are coming out with multiples of that. And what does that do to the student and the family? It is an incredible stressor on the family. So if the student's the one who's borrowed the money, their future is sort of tainted by the fact that they've got at least 10 years of student loan repayment to contend with. Now, if it's a manageable account, that might be okay, but in many cases, it's far too much. So what are they doing? They're avoiding taking steps into adulthood as they ordinarily would have otherwise. So in many cases, they're living at home for many additional years. They're not, when they get their first job, they're often not able to start saving for retirement, right? They certainly aren't saving up to purchase their first home or apartment or car. And in many cases, there's studies that show they're actually letting their health fail to some extent because they don't have the money to perhaps pursue dental work or forms of medical care that they need. So it can be devastating to come out with an unmanageable amount of debt. That's for the student. For the parents who took out Parent Plus loans or loans that they themselves are responsible for, they've got some challenges too. Parents are now heading to the later portion of their lives encumbered by debt. And that can be really challenging for a parent as they're nearing those retirement years to have that burden of debt upon them. Some parents wind up taking an equity line of credit on their home, borrowing from their retirement account to either help in the first place or repay student loan debt. This can all have an adverse impact. So by all means, to the extent families can avoid or minimize student loan debt, everyone's going to be better off. And if they do take out debt that's manageable, getting it paid down as quickly as possible can really be helpful too. And I hope we'll talk about ways that employers can help with that because they can.
Absolutely. We'll get to that. What was really interesting to me, because you educated me, and as a grandparent, we were able to help our grandson. And I loved your book and contacted the state of Vermont, and they educated me. They had a really good support customer service, and they walked me through the whole process. And what's so wonderful is that the money that you put in, the interest that it accrues, is also not taxable, like you said. So I went into one of my physicians and who just had twins, and I said, "Do you have a 529 plan?" And she said, "Yes, we do." And we're telling the grandparents and the cousins and the aunts and everybody to donate, to give. These are the gifts they need to be giving at Christmas and their birthdays. And I mean, Legos are great. They have plenty of Legos, so they could really use this gift. And it is a gift of a lifetime when you think about it, an entire lifetime, because what education does and the freedoms that it gives us is really worth the time and the investment. So this was not around when I was going to school. So now I truly appreciate what it's doing for people. So tell us then about how how businesses are now using this as a contribution for their employees.
Absolutely. So many employers are concerned with attracting and retaining top talent. We know there's been quiet quitting, all sorts of disruption to businesses and employers of all sizes due to the pandemic and other circumstances. So they're often looking at ways that they can attract and retain individuals who they want to be working for them. And they're thinking of ways to distinguish themselves. Well, helping individuals pay back student loan debt, which is something employers can do. There was a provision in the CARES Act of 2020, as amended in 2021, that allows employers to repay up to $5,250 a year of student loan debt, tax-free to the employee, free of payroll tax for the employer, and as a business tax deduction. Now that is going to go on for just a few more years unless extended by Congress, but that is a way employers can help. Another way employers can help is to have education on 529 plans be brought into the workplace. So having someone like myself come in and talk to employees about ways they can save, that's very valuable because most employees won't know about it. Beyond that, if an employer wanted to do more, they could offer payroll deduction to 529 plan accounts. That's a very effective way to help people save, because if the money doesn't first cross their hands and get diverted to another purpose, they're more likely to save more for college. And in fact, there's a study that shows saving through the workplace results in 75% more dollars in those 529 plan accounts. For that very reason, is that the money doesn't get diverted somewhere else. And then beyond that, the employer is eligible to match contributions or to make a one-time dollar amount into any employee's 529 account. So I work with employers of all sizes across the US. Some are giving a $100 contribution whenever an employee opens a 529 account. Others are giving up to $5,000 a year into these accounts. It really depends on the employer, but matching and contributing really gets employees excited. They don't like to leave money on the table, and it gets them interested in saving, and they certainly appreciate their employer in knowing that that person really cares about what they may be struggling with. And since these 529 accounts are not only for younger people who may be aspiring for higher education someday, adult learners as well can contribute to them. So some employers are recognizing helping with 529 savings can help their workforce better retool themselves, gain additional skills, and they're valuing that. And then the last thing that employers are doing, and I love it, my company offers gift cards for 529 college savings accounts. They can be redeemed into any 529 plan account in any state. But some employers are starting to rethink the silver spoon that they were giving when a new baby arrived in an employee's life. And instead, they're giving the gift card, $25 to $500, $200 to an employee. And some are even giving a copy of my book along with it. But they're helping employees get started saving for their newborn instead of spending money on something that's less valuable. Some are giving a smaller floral arrangement, or they're even skipping the flowers and they're giving something like this. And I think, Gayle, that that's something an employee would really remember. Who got me started on the savings journey? Oh, it was my employer, right? Now they've got a little bit of a stake in the future of your new child, and I love it. So I'm encouraging employers of all sizes to consider what they can do. There's so many different things, from a simple lunch and learn session to payroll deduction to matching if you're so inclined, to giving a gift for a new baby in an employee's family.
That's outstanding. Tell us about how you, because you're an attorney and you raised a son and he graduated debt-free. So tell us about what inspired you to do this, because it's absolutely brilliant. It's helping the parent, it's helping the student, it's helping the parents, it's helping higher education, it's helping the future of our country. It's helping really the extent to how many people and how many ways it's helping is just, it's exponential. So tell us, Pat, how did you get inspired to work on this?
Well, let me first show you a picture of that recent grad. This is Ben. I hope you can see it.
Yes.
I was intent on saving for his future because his dad and I were weighed down by a tremendous amount of student loan debt when he arrived in our lives in 1993. We both had undergraduate degrees. My husband had a master's degree. We both had met in law school at night. We were weighed down by over $100,000 in debt. And we both came from low income backgrounds where no one was able to save or prepare for our future. Certainly these accounts were not around at that time, but we had no level of preparation as first generation college goers. I personally almost missed the chance to attend college because of the fragile state of my family and because of cost. But I do know, despite the student loan debt that we had to pay down, we both believed firmly that attaining higher education enabled us to greatly improve our lives and improve the lives of our extended families as well. And as a result, we really believed in wanting to prepare for our son's higher education too. So we started taking a little at a time, and I did it out of my paycheck, which is why I'm so intent on telling others to consider this. We had a small one-bedroom apartment. We now had to pay for childcare. We had no idea how we were going to afford this, but we started just a little at a time. We might have taken $25 or so out of our paycheck. I was fortunate to know about 529 plan accounts because as an attorney early in my career, I was working on them from a legal perspective just as they were becoming popular in the late 1990s. So I at least had the familiarity, but we did a little at a time. We set our vision on what we wanted it to look like when this baby would someday grow up, and we wanted him to be free of the stress that we had. And that vision we held close to our hearts, and we just kept saving. And as we had a little more money and a little more money along the way, we got our own loans paid off during that whole time. We were able to save a little bit more. And then when the time came for him to look at colleges and to decide upon one, we really kept reason in the driver's seat. We were very clear with our son about the fact that we had been saving. He knew it all along. He was putting a little bit of his tooth fairy money in and his, holiday money. He was on board with us, but he also knew we didn't have an endless supply of money. So we looked at schools we could afford. We certainly looked at some that would be a stretch in terms of the cost, but our son knew what we had and what the circumstances were going to be depending on what he decided. And in the end, he went to a school that also had offered him an academic scholarship. So he had that money along with what we had. It was a private institution that he absolutely loved, Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts. It was a great fit for him, but he knew going into it that we could afford it. And that made it so much easier for him.
And it also has the college student involved, meaning they understand the financial commitment that is happening. And in a way it's an investment, right? It's an investment. That investment that started when he was an infant has gone on, and now it's an investment in his future. And so what was it like for him to graduate debt-free?
I think it was absolutely amazing for him to graduate debt-free. He wrote the foreword to my book, Route 529. And in that foreword, he expresses what it felt like to be growing up in a family that was prioritizing this goal for him. He knew all along that we were saving for him. We acquainted him with the topic in age-appropriate ways, but he had a sense that he was going to college and that we were working toward that goal together as a family. He knew as we drove him off to the college he ultimately selected that we were driving an automobile that was over 20 years old. He knew we weren't spending money frivolously on things that we didn't need. That car to this day, now I think 25 years old, is still running, knock wood. We didn't buy things that we didn't need because we had our mindset on a particular goal. Certainly we spent money from time to time on fun things and adventures, but we kept in mind what that end result was that we wanted to see. So he has a real appreciation of that. And he also says that he took that sort of way of approaching things, small, consistent steps, to learn about how could he handle things himself, not only financial things, but big projects in college or in high school, right? Set the goal, back into the steps that would be needed, right? And then consistently pursue them. So he learned a tremendous amount. What he also says is he felt he had options, which his dad and I did not feel like we necessarily had in, choosing our degrees or what careers to pursue. Ben had options. He could study what he loved. And he could take an occasional unpaid internship because he wasn't so desperate to have to make money to pay for the next semester. So he certainly did work through college and he did volunteering, but he also had the opportunity to take things from time to time that were unpaid. And then he was able to study abroad. And then upon graduation, to really look at fields that he loved rather than worrying about exactly what do they pay and how am I going to get this debt paid off. I'm happy to say he's now living independently, sharing an apartment with 2 roommates. They each have their own bedroom. He was able to clear the credit check and get that place on his own. He is saving for retirement at his first job and really making me so proud. And I'm so happy, as is his dad, that he did not come out with the weight of the world on his shoulders as we did. And I'm really proud about that. Again, combination of savings, sensible decisions, and just keeping our eye on the goal. And he knows that money did not drop from trees. He knows exactly how he got to where he is, and he appreciates it. And we're just so proud to have set our mind on something and achieved it.
Yes. And again, it's investing for the future, and it's opening up a whole new world for him that's prepared him. And the other piece of it is coming out debt free or with a low amount of debt that's manageable, is that the mental and emotional weight that comes off with that has got to make all the difference in terms of education choices, life choices, and just general happiness. And so that's really a phenomenal gift. So for you, Pat, what would you like to leave the audience with today? Um, I just, before we get to that answer, I just want to thank you for coming to, in my life, to educate me, because we were able to help and are helping our grandson. And I'm educating other people as well, because this is something that it's like small investments with huge returns, whatever time you can start. And to let people know that this is available for them and that it's government IRS approved.
Sure is.
One last question before we get to the final one. So for people who are going to grad school or going to medical school or law school, is any of this applicable to that?
Yes, these accounts can be used for a wide range of educational experiences, not just traditional 4-year college. It could be used for a community college, other 2-year institutions, trade or technical school, Gayle, that gets overlooked all the time. These accounts can be used for trade and technical school, registered apprenticeships, graduate and professional studies. So we're talking cosmetology school through dental school and all sorts of things in between. So absolutely, positively, they can be used for graduate school. That was your one question just now. Absolutely.
That's great to know. I was speaking to a physician recently about the cost of medical education now and the debt that they're coming out with. And this is, when parents know that, you can start preparing early on. So thank you for that. So now, what would you like to leave the audience with?
Well, I hope I've educated your audience. I hope I've also inspired them in some way to know there are simple steps you can take to avoid or minimize that future for a child that you love with student loan debt. So I suggest take a look online. If you're not familiar with 529 plans, take a look up your state name and the numbers 529 and see what your state has to offer, as Gayle did. They have wonderful call centers where you can call and have your questions answered. And I would suggest doing that. You don't need to invest in your home state program, although many do, but it's a great place to start. The other thing I would do is get started. Once you feel you have the information you need, don't put it off. There's no reason to put it off. Get started, get that account open, even with a small amount. Set up automatic contributions. Ask your employer if they might be willing to help in some way. And then certainly ask friends and family for the next birthday, the next holiday, the next milestone or special occasion. Could they consider not spending their time shopping and guessing what your child might like, what might fit or not fit, but instead contributing toward the 529 account? I think you'll be very glad that you did that. And I bet you people who love your child would be happy to contribute towards something that's not going to be outgrown, that's not going to wind up in a closet, attic, landfill, but instead is an investment in that child. And those are the things I would suggest you do, but do something and do it as soon as you can.
And if you're a business owner, can you start it for your business?
Absolutely. I would encourage any business owner who wants to learn a little bit more about what they can possibly do to help employees with the cost of higher education to contact someone like myself. Gayle, I hope you'll put my contact information in the notes from this podcast, but it's patricia@giftofcollege.com, patricia@giftofcollege.com. I will provide you with many options of what you can do as an employer, and I hope you'll consider doing it, because the employer contributions to student loans, to 529 accounts, can be deducted from a business tax perspective as compensation. That's definitely something to consider. I think you'd feel great about it, and so would your employees.
Excellent. Yes, we'll put all that information in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here today with us and for helping us to know more about the 529 plan and inspiring millions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. I hope today's episode helped you adopt more tools to implement daily. Choose change, look within, see your inner wisdom already exists, and live your optimal health. If this inspires you, I invite you to share this on your favorite social platform, share it with a friend, or just help us spread the importance of health-conscious living. For more health lifestyle tips, check out healthconsciousinc.com, sign up for my email, and follow me at Gayle Myers MD on Instagram. Hit the subscribe button. I'd love for you to give a 5-star review and leave your comments or questions. Until next week, rejoice in the health that you have.